All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast. Today we have Joe Cilic from Sotheby's International Realty in Brentwood, which is a part of LA, as most of you know. Joe, I'm so excited to have because he has quickly come back into the business as a top agent after, this is like he's eight listings in his first month back, everybody, and that's after 12 months in management. Before that, he was a realtor. What's that? 12 years. Thank you. 12 years in management after being a realtor before that. And before that, he was an attorney. So he's either all business, totally organized, or crazy realtor. We're going to find out a little bit about the difference today, what he's learned from all of it, and how it has gotten him to such a high level of performance as a real estate agent today. Joe, awesome to have you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for having me on. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
So tell us a little more about where you are now and kind of a little bit about your story of how you got here.
Right. So I was an attorney practicing law representing real estate companies, including Sotheby's. And I realized one day that I liked what they were doing more than what I was doing. And so I said, I'm going to go be an agent. And I planned it out, and I ended up walking away from the practice of law, though I'm still an attorney and have been for 17 years. I left the practice of law and went into sales, and it was a very exciting and big change. But back then, 14 years ago, I didn't have any mouths to feed aside from my own. So it was one of those, where the timing made sense to make a move. And I went for it. And then what ended up happening, I ended up being asked a lot of questions from agents in the office about legal issues. Being in California, unfortunately, it's a very litigious state. And so agents often run into legal issues here. And so, I was answering questions, and they said, you should actually go into management. And so I did.
So how long were you a realtor before you went into management?
A couple years, and I had some good success doing that, and I was having a lot of fun. And then my boss came to me and said, we'd like you to go into management. And I said, well, why would I ever want to do that?
Right.
And he made a good pitch. And back, at that point in my life, it was a very prestigious thing to be able to be, a manager and executive with Sotheby's International Realty. And it still is today. But for me, in that point in my life, it was a great leadership role and one that I was excited about. And so I embraced it, and for 12 years, worked as a manager with the company.
Awesome. So 12 years in management. And on those 12 years of management, you and I met 4 or 5 years ago.
I think at least that long ago.
Maybe
Whenever
6.
you came to Sotheby's and went to a G&E, I've been to, all of them in the last, 12 years. So we probably met at the Global Networking event.
We did. Well, we met at the Global Networking event in your market in LA, and I think that was 4 or 5 years ago. So we met there. And even in that time, as a manager, you were always putting creative ideas in front of your agents, new things they could do, keeping them inspired, keeping them thinking, keeping them, aligning to who they were and creating success through that, not just what we would expect of the typical corporate attorney. So we're all impressed. I'm impressed knowing your history. But you've been great. You've always had these great, different, new, really inspiring ideas, not just what you might expect of the typical rules and regulations that you would hear from a broker. So you've learned that over 12 years watching other agents. What was the breaking point, or what built up to you deciding to get back into being a real estate agent?
Jerry, actually, it was you.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
I love it.
I was listening to your podcast, and I remember when your first podcast was coming out, we talked about it, and I would listen to them at the gym when I was, in the morning.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd listen to them when I was cleaning my house. And so I told all the agents, I said, you got to listen to Jerry's podcast, and you get so much out of it.
By the way. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're a celebrity in our market, by the way, Jerry. So
I love that. I'm a celebrity in LA. Like, who knew? And if you only knew, like, I grew up not just in Atlanta, but actually South Georgia. I'm in the big city now. But I love it. So, and a lot of that is thanks to you. And all of your support of me and your office and all the crazy things I'm always doing. So you listen to the podcast, but a lot of people listen.
And I got inspired, actually, because, I think that there's kind of two types of people, and some get inspired from the success of others, and others get intimidated by it and jealous. And I certainly get inspired by it. And so listening to the successful people come on your show, listening to you, I would then take those ideas back to the office and we talk about it and mix them in with my own ideas. And some agents would embrace that and go out and have great success, and others would choose not to. And I started to get to the point where I really just wanted to go and do it myself. And so I decided that I would jump back into it, and it's been really good.
Well, it's been really great, and it's been working for you. I mean, I love that. I think it's like you see all the opportunity out there, and you decided to go out there and take advantage of it. And 1 month back into this, you pick up 8 listings. So tell us a little bit about how you did that.
Yeah. So in our market, a top agent will do about 20 deals in a year, and the average agent just does a couple deals a year because we're in a high price point market. My office, the average price point has historically been around $2 million a sale, and my average sales price is about just under $4 million. So getting 8 listings a month is something that's pretty unusual, and it just really came together. I have 5 different buckets, I call them, of target clients that I like to work with, or ways in which I source my business. And the business came from those 5 buckets, and I'd be happy to share what they are. I'm an open book.
Awesome. So you've got 5. So you've had 12 years to oversee and manage agents and see all the. Sometimes it's not just about seeing what to do; it's a lot of seeing what not to do. And how did you come up with? Well, we want to know what they are, but also when you tell us what they are, how did you come up with the 5 buckets, and how did you know that this was right? Like, really, let us know where that idea come from, and how did you implement it to create the results you created?
I think that's a great question. I think when we go through them, you'll see that they were types of people who were in my life. And then I categorized them and realized that over the years, I had, before when I was doing sales, I certainly had, a lot of clients coming from different places. And then while I was in management, some of those same people wanted to do business with me, and I ended up referring them to my agents in my office and in my company. And then helping out with those transactions as well. And that's something different. My model as a manager, I was deeply involved in the transactions in our office. So everything from helping the agents price them to helping with negotiation, sometimes being on the calls negotiating with them, and other times ghostwriting their emails. So it was
that's huge. That's heavy involvement. Yeah, that's huge.
I was not just standing by the sidelines, looking over their paperwork. I was very involved in those 12 years. And so through that experience, and through my own experience with the clients that I was bringing in and sourcing and giving out to my agents, that's how I established these 5 buckets of ways in which I get business. And I can tell you about them.
Please tell us now. We're ready. What are they?
Okay, so the first one is attorneys, and that's obvious. I've been an attorney for 17 years, and attorneys can be a great source of business because they're people that other people go to and ask for recommendations. And so, whether it's an estate planning attorney or a real estate attorney or a divorce attorney, attorneys can be a great source of business. And they also buy homes themselves. Now, in Los Angeles, where the homes are quite expensive, the attorneys are not typically buying the most expensive homes in our marketplace. Their clients are. And so I'm working with attorneys on their own purchases, and I'm working with their clients on even more substantial transactions. And so I really target them because I speak their language, and so it just was a natural fit.
Awesome. So what's the next bucket?
So the next bucket is professional networking, and I joined a group called Provisors, and Provisors is a professional networking group where you meet once a month and you connect with other people in the business world who are, interested in doing more business themselves, but also looking for trusted referral sources. And so I've been a member for a while and utilized that to help my contacts when they needed other, people in other industries. And that's actually proven to be now a great resource for me moving forward with them referring me business. And now that they know that I'm actually going to handle the business, those referrals are starting to come in.
I love that. I think most people, when you talk about networking, most people go into networking with what is in it for me.
Right.
And when you go in it and what can I do it for them, it
Right.
immediately pays back. And you also immediately sense, you can figure out who has value to offer very quickly. And the people who are valuable and good at what they do are always the people who refer back.
Exactly.
Anyway. And the benefit and the connection and what it does for you to have those kinds of connections is so huge also. There's just so many people miss that. People always talk about, like, how can I get to the next level? That's just like next level thinking. I love it. And I love that you phrased it in a way that so many people listening could miss it. So I had to reel that one in. That was great. So we've got 3 more: attorneys, professional networking, in the sense of not what's in it for me, but developing connections and giving to them so that you cultivate and kind of in a farmer's way, not a hunter's way, so that they grow into things that provide for you. So number 3 is?
Number 3 is my sphere of influence, which everybody obviously has that, and that's friends, family, but also preschool parents. So I have 2 children. One who's I have a 5-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter, and so of course I have my hands full. But
yes, you do.
But kids can be a great source of business. And so my son goes to a preschool, and the parents from the preschool are at a point in their life where some of them need to expand their homes. And so I've gotten business that way. And I think that moving forward, that's going to continue to be a great source of business. And we go to, an elite preschool. And so there's a lot of successful business people that are going to the school, and it's just a great synergy there. So that, and of course, friends and family. So that sphere of influence has been a big boost to my business.
Exactly. And on the school thing, I have to elaborate on that. I think the way you even mentally have that, I think so many people see school, like realtors or people prospecting businesses, they kind of attack it and go after it as opposed to recognize, and people sense that and run from it, but you're a part of
Right.
that community and doing business in a place of helping and a place of being part of the community, not suddenly attacking them with calls and inundating them with mailers and,
Right.
stuff that might work in a lower price point, non-elite school. Because I'm in a similar situation where I'm in those circles, but I find there are a lot of realtors that are attacking from the outside and doing
Yes.
things, and I'm doing it from the inside, and not in a way that I'm going after the business, but in the way that we had the value provided and we're already inside the gates and a trusted resource. So 4 and 5.
So 4 is charity. So I've been in the philanthropic community for quite some time, probably 18 years. I've been serving on boards. I've been donating time and money, and I've never sourced anything out of it. It's just something that I've always been passionate about. And so now I'm excited about doing some Giveback campaigns, where I'm able to give back to some organizations out of my commission. And also those, friends, family, past clients. I invite them to, and past clients especially. I just went to a board of gala this weekend, and we had a table of 10, and it was $500 a ticket. I paid for the table, and I invited past clients, and all but one of them was a past client actually who sat at our table. And it's just a fun thing to do if you can go to a fun gala. And so it's a way where I tie in the charity and past clients. And then I've done some giving back where, a certain amount of money from a transaction will go back to the nonprofit of the choice of the client. And so this year, I think we've committed to about $17,000 so far.
Wow. The year's not even halfway over. And even doing the galas, you're not just giving. You're giving to the charity, but you're also giving an experience to your client. And
Yes.
it's definitely just experience. Stacey Jones always talks about, like, you got to pick Stacey Jones. You probably know Stacey, owner at Realty with Dean.
Yeah.
But she talks about, like, you got to, like, give people a memory print. Like, you really got to engage with people in a way that they love you and remember you. And that's such a great way to do that and to give to something. And number 5.
Number 4 was a charity, and we also do one thing that I didn't mention about our sphere of influence, our friends and our contacts and the parents from the schools. We do parties, so we entertain in addition to the charity events. I did a Gatsby party for my wife this year, and we went all out. We rented a $22 million home, and for a lot of the people there said it was the most wild, fun party that they'd
Did you get that on video? Don't tell me no. Oh my God.
We have some video clips of it. We had a photographer that we hired. We had a photo booth, and we.
Oh, that's awesome.
We had gambling. We had dancers. We had. It was an event, and it was actually very expensive. But it was really memorable for those, friends and past clients. And so, we just like to do that.
That's incredible.
We did another event in Malibu last weekend where we, had a barbecue, and that was much less elaborate, but, everyone could bring their kids and we'd hang out and barbecue. And so we do love to do that.
Awesome.
But number 5 is other agents. So both in my local market and then across the globe, agents like you and agents that are out there listening. I've gotten, I've built a lot of relationships over the years, and I think that's been a good source of business. An agent brought me in on an $18 million listing just this week to go and meet with the clients because she hadn't been in that price point before. And she felt like, it's better to get 50% of something than nothing. And so she said, you know what, you want to team up and go on this together. And so, that's, one of the sources of business for me going forward is some agents in the local market. And then I have a team that, I started with Bruno Abasor was my first.
Bruno. Awesome. Bruno just did a quick guest appearance for us a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think we got that recorded, but that's all right. So anyway, tell us more about Bruno.
Yeah, so Bruno is probably the most tech-savvy agent I've ever met, and very likable, well-liked by everybody in the office. And he actually had represented my some of my friends and my family members in real estate, over the years, and they really loved him. And so when I decided to get started, he came to me and said, this might be a good fit for us to work together. And there was no question that he brings great skills to the table and is someone who I trust completely. And so it's the two of us. And then we were approached, talked to an agent in our office who really wanted to be on a team. And we weren't looking to expand because, we're just kind of getting started. But he's such a good guy, and his name's Kevin Kelly. And we found a way where it would make sense. for him to work with a lot of my investor clients that are interested in multi-unit residential.
Yeah.
And he's got a background in construction and development and knows that market really well. And so we just added him to the team a few days ago. And so Bruno and Kevin source their own, business, and with me along with them. And so they're great additions to what I'm bringing to the table myself.
So I love to learn. I'm going to review for everybody real quick your 5 buckets. So you've got number 1, attorneys, professional networking, and not just like networking for you, but networking to develop relationships and grow your network. Your sphere of influence, which includes things like the people like that your kids to go to school with that are in your world every day. Charities, giving back, creating events, getting your clients involved, giving back at closings. Number 5 is other agents, which is examples like the business that we do together, the business that you're doing with other agents. Agents bringing you in on listings, referring out, referring in. And now that brings us into the team. So you and Bruno are working together, and then you've got Kevin Kelly. So tell us a little bit about, and you're pretty fresh into this. I mean, we're talking like, are you 6 months in, or a year? Or?
So we started the team just 2 months ago.
But but when did you switch from management to being an agent?
So that's when I did it. So Bruno came on right away. So he was the only person that I told in advance of making the announcement. Because he had, come to me and talked about, teaming up and wanting to work together. And he just put it out there, not knowing that in the back of my head, I was thinking about doing that, being inspired, like I said, by your show and others out there being so successful. And so he put it out there, and I said, actually, maybe one day we would work together. And so
love it.
We started kicking it around and decided to do it.
Awesome. So you and Bruno, and then you guys have brought Kevin Kelly kind of as you guys, it sounds like you guys are basically the business partners running the show. And then you've got Kevin, go ahead. Or how does it, what's the structure?
Yeah, so it's called the Cilic Group, and Bruno's a partner with me, and actually Kevin's coming in as a partner as well. And so, without going into great details on how exactly it's all working, it's kind of based on originations, and so originating the client, but we all share business together, and so Kevin's coming in as a partner as well, we're kind of figuring this out.
I mean, you're hitting the ground running 2 months in. Already on the Jere Metcalf Podcast, 8 listings in 1 month. I mean, you're rocking it out. And now you've got these listings, you've got Bruno, now you've got Kevin coming in. Obviously, you're getting a lot of buyers, you're getting a lot of investors. Have you guys figured out kind of like what is on the administrative end? Do y'all have virtual assistants or how do you handle the listings, who's scheduling the photo shoots, who's overseeing that, or where are y'all in that? Are y'all still figuring that out? That's a great question. So we don't have an assistant right now. So there's 3 of us, and that's it. And so, it's the lead agent on it is typically the one who originates the business, but not always. So we identify who the lead agent is, and then with some of the deals, we're both or even 3 of us would participate in certain aspects of it. And so like scheduling the photo, Bruno might schedule the photo shoot, but I'll show up at that photo shoot, and I tend to be pretty, opinionated with certain things. And so I'll go in and kind of, work with the photographers on different shots that we want to get. And so we do that stuff together. I think we will need to add an administrative person, but right now what I'm doing is I'm just taking notes, and I'm taking notes on what do I not like to do. Exactly. And it's good to do it first. So okay, this is really what it entails. This is really what's going on. So I really know the kind of person that's going to fill that role, and what kind of time does it really take, and what is that job really worth.
That is absolutely correct, and that's what it's too early to do that. And so I'm just taking notes right now, and then eventually we'll know the person that we're looking for, so that we can fill it with the right person. and not just
Awesome.
a person.
I've got a little thing I do. It's like the Muscle of Quadrant, and you've got your 4 quadrants, and there's the
Oh, yeah.
stuff you must do and the stuff you love to do, and you do all that. And then the stuff you don't love to do and the stuff that must be done, that's the stuff you delegate first. And then there's the stuff that you want to do but you don't have to do, and vice versa, and that stuff can get done last. I love it. So what do you think is, I usually start with this, but what do you think is your biggest, in such a competitive industry, what do you think it is that won you 8 listings in your first month in that competitive market, and what is it that is your competitive edge that attracts people to you first?
Right.
Why are they hiring you and not somebody else?
Yeah, I've been now a part of 4,000 transactions in our marketplace, and so supervising those transactions, but like I said, really diving into those deals and handling all the complications that came up, which agents would come to me with, but also just being strategic partners with the agents in my office. And so now, going into a meeting with a client, I have a lot of confidence. I've been a part of $5 billion in transactions. So when I sit down with them, I don't say, when they ask a question, I'm speaking from actual experience, and I can say, I've been through this particular thing 20 times in the past, and here's how it turns out. And so they
Huge. Yeah.
They like that advice based on actual experience. And so I think that that's been a competitive advantage. I think being an attorney.
Well, you kind of had me, it's like Jerry Maguire, you had me at hello. You had me at 4,000 transactions. Like, that's it. But yeah, and the fact that you can speak to experience and people, what is storytelling? You've got a million stories to tell. But you keep going with, you were talking about the transactions and the experience.
Yeah, so I think that that's a big part of it. I think that afterwards, though, when a client actually works with me or with Bruno or my team, I think the thing that they would say that they appreciate most is not just that advice, but the fact that we're so responsive. So I am kind of psychotic when it comes to being responsive to clients. So if I have an email, I want to respond to that email at the moment that they're done writing it. And part of that comes from the fact that I've sold my own homes in LA. I've sold, I think, 5 of my own homes here. And so I had agents working on that with me. And I wanted to know after a showing, how did it go? Because I was planning my life based on that. And so with my clients, I know that it's very important to them, even though maybe the showing, was a total dud. They need to get feedback on that.
Yeah.
So
I need to know, was it a dud? Was it not? Why aren't you? And I always think, like, people are like, well, why do I need, if I'll let you know. If there's something for you to know, I'll let you know. That can unfortunately be the attitude of agents. But it's like, but here's what happens. Human nature is that whatever blank, like when we see things, our eyes fill the spots that we can't see. And they fill it with other stuff from former experience, which there's a lot of former negative experience with realtors. So when we're not communicating with them, they're writing their own story. If we're not telling them reality, they're making up their own truth, whether it's truth or not. And it can get really ugly if we're not in there constantly walking them through, holding their hand. We've done this a million times. You've done it 4,000. They haven't. So huge. And I love that you've done it 4,000 times, but you don't take it for granted that they haven't.
Right. Absolutely. And it's there, and regardless of price point, I've done some very big deals. I did a $30 million deal. But I've also done, very small transactions. And to those people, that transaction is everything to them. The person who has a $30 million home, they have a lot of other assets, and so they may not even be as attached to the deal as the person with the, $400,000 or $500,000 condo. So
very true. Or as experienced with transactions in general, or as savvy, or they might get more nervous, or there's a million different scenarios to take into account, which is a great reason to work on a broad level of prices, because you get different perspectives. And I always say, there are a lot of deals that we can do just to learn and for the experience that we can take on to future deals to get us, make us better at what we do or get us to the next level where we want to be, and treat every deal that way. So that's huge. What do you think, coming into this business, which, and I don't mean just in your recent transition.
Right.
But in business for real estate agents in general, because you're very successful now, but you've seen 4,000 transactions and so many real estates in the business. What do you think is, you've got what makes you good, but also what is the common denominator do you find of other agents? And what do you think is kind of the common denominator of agents who aren't making it and the ones who are at the top and aren't making it?
Right. That's a great question. I think that part of it is work ethic. So obviously, as an independent contractor, you can work as little or as much as possible. But mostly it's really the people who have a passion or desire to be successful, and they really want it. They really, failure is not an option. And so when all of us are going to have disappointment. So, we were 8 for 8 on listing appointments, and then I went to 2 and didn't get them. And so if you go to an appointment and no matter who you are, no matter how great things are going, something, you're not going to get everything. Mm-hmm. And so you got to shrug off those, disappointments. And sometimes they can be very big. I just learned that a contact of mine bought a $23 million home and didn't use me for it. Now, it wasn't a client of mine. It was a contact of mine.
But you're like, I could have made that happen. What did I do wrong? But it's always like we can be disappointed and complain, or we can figure out, learn from it and make up for it, learn from it. I mean, there's a million. That's what I love about this business is it can make you crazy. Or you can choose that, or you can choose to constantly build character and be a better person. I don't think I'd be nearly the nice person I am, believe it or not. Everybody talks about how cutthroat our business is, but it's actually what you make of it. What is your biggest aha about our business over these years?
Yeah, I think that in my market, I think deal flow is a big aha. It's really sort of, if you start off as a new agent in our market, I think that new agents average less than doing 1 transaction in their first year. So can you imagine that? How are you supposed to gain any confidence at doing that? And so deal flow is super important. So I think that agents are wise unless they have, unless they're kind of, in an anomaly situation, to start off on a team or start off as an assistant to an agent so that they can get experience and deal flow going through their hands and gaining that experience, I think is really important.
You can't fake confidence, and you can't get it without experience.
Right. And so that's a big aha. And then being part of something is better than nothing. And so when I was in the business early on, I had a client that took me into an area that I wasn't that familiar with. And I thought, I can do it. I can, work on this transaction. And I ended up not selling the client a home. And then they eventually, went and worked with somebody else. And had I teamed up with somebody who really knew that marketplace and shared that client, not only would I have done that transaction, but I'm sure I would have done multiple transactions in the future. And so, if you're not comfortable in a price point, in a location, you need to team up. And
that's so powerful. And the time that it's going to save you.
Oh, yes.
That you've got somebody, well, first of all, you've got somebody in to help you win the business, then help you secure the business over the long haul, and then save you the time on researching the market and being in the market while you can just go build more business and look really good to that client because you weren't afraid to bring somebody else into the transaction. I've won and kept a lot of business that way. What do you find because part of me wants to interview like Joe Cilic, the realtor, and part of me is like, and Joe Cilic, the managing broker, who's seen a trillion things happen in this market. So here's one, and you can take this to you or another agent, but I'll preface this question. It's our successes come out of not really all that success, but that came out of how we handled the failures that led up to it. And what we learned from it. What's a great story you can give us about that scenario with a realtor, how they made challenges and built off of challenges or built off of one challenging transaction into a success, or how do you have any experience in that your own you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, in thinking about that, I think when I first got started in the business, my first client, I was so excited to have a client. And so I was working with her very hard. She was a buyer client. And we were looking at properties, and we'd written some offers, and then all of a sudden, something happened in her life that prevented her from from being able to buy at that point. And so that was devastating to me because it was going to be my first transaction. But I bowed out very gracefully with her and made her, not concerned about the time that I had spent and the energy and everything that I put into it. And I was just very much, supportive of her and her situation and not thinking about myself. Well, that person, came back to buy multiple properties with me, referred me to the person who I actually sold my first deal to because she felt bad about not, being able to do it. And so bowing out gracefully or giving people advice. I gave somebody advice the other day and they said, a developer offered me this for my property and, should I take it? Or should I put my home on the market? And I said, you should take it because that's a premium for your house. And you don't need to pay me a real estate commission, to get you, that same number. And so giving, honest advice, even though that's not going to result in a transaction, I know that person will come back later. And even if they don't, it was the right thing to do. But they'll probably come back later with a referral of someone who's 3 times, a 3 times bigger deal than theirs.
So
because
true. Yeah. Well, and the truth comes out anyway. But not only that, in doing that, it's. I always say, don't focus on people. Like so many in our business, people focus on one person and getting that deal and how am I going to close them and get them to hire me. And it's not about that. It's how am I going to help them? What's best for them? And when you do that and come from that place, they end up referring you. They do business with you or they don't, but it's the referrals that really matter anyway and that grow and cultivate our business, which is exactly where you're coming from. So we've already been on like for a good while. So I want to, unless you want to like elaborate, I have like my 3 final questions I'll like to go in and close out with. So one of them is, what do you find has been the most beneficial? I'd love to know, like, Wunderlist is my new latest favorite app. But do you have an app or a tool that you have found very powerful in implementing to grow your business or build your team or help your clients?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'm not the most tech savvy person on our team. Bruno is, but he got me on
Bruno.
something.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we got to yell down the hallway.
Right.
He got me on Trello, and Trello is like a posting board where we can have all of our vendors and our transactions and our clients. And so in real time, if you update it, it updates it on his Trello app, on Kevin's Trello app, so we can all see what's happening, and we can also see all of our clients, so we can keep track of all of our buyer clients out there and what they're looking for, because Bruno may come across a good property, and then he can go on there and see, does Kevin or does Joe have a client that might be a good fit for it. So Trello's been something that we've implemented.
Trello is kind of a streamliner, or kind of like, I've heard of it, but I've never used it or tried it.
Yeah, so I don't even know exactly what you would call it. It's like a board where you can see all sorts of different things, like headlines and then subcategories under it. And so you can have all your listings there, and then you can have a workflow of what needs to be done to service that listing. Awesome. And then you can cross it off as you do it. But it's nothing to do with real estate. It's just something that we've implemented into what we're doing.
So everybody can look at a picture of what's going on at any point in time.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. And see that in real time. And you can make changes, write notes, all those sorts of things.
So this is a good question for you, especially being the inspiring managing broker that you have been in former years and coming into real estate and listening to the podcast. What is the book or speaker that you most highly recommend listeners and to this show, including myself, read or listen to most benefit our business?
Yeah. So the referral code is one, and that's something that talks about. It's not a real estate specific book, but it's about getting business, through warm leads rather than cold calling and cold leads. And that's something that really, I've modeled my business on, is warm, introductions.
Kind of like your networking that you do.
Yeah, exactly. And then also Talent is Never Enough by John C. Maxwell. I think that is a great book that, it's true that talent is not enough, and it takes more than just having talent. And so it goes through 13 different things that you need to complement with talent in order to be successful. And some of them
Fun book. Yeah.
Belief and passion and preparation and teamwork. So that's a good one. It's a little bigger, but you can do it in chapters.
That's what I have Audibles for. Audibles, just put it in, listen. That's everybody knows. Never Split the Difference is you would think they were sponsoring the podcast, but they're not. They should be. But Never Split the Difference. I've listened to that book only 4 times in my car on Audibles. But this is why I keep asking so I can listen to new books. But that one's been pretty huge for me. So the referral code and talent alone, or talent is never enough. I'm thinking like talent alone isn't enough, but talent is never enough. And what is the one thing, if there's anything that you would have us get out of this interview with you, tell us what that is.
I would say that, so we had a saying with my charity that I was on the board of for a long time. And that saying was that the actual proves the possible. And so if you look at a top agent in your marketplace, look at them to say, wow, they're actually doing that, which means it's possible to do that, and get inspired by that. And if you're not inspired by that, then don't look at them. And so I would always say, and that's how I look at it. And I say, okay, well, we got 8 listings in 1 month in this market. That means it's possible. So now we got to go out and do it again. And so I think that's probably.
I love that. It's like, you can see all the other agents, and everybody even has this idea that we're in this cutthroat industry as it's cutthroat, their competition, or wait, perhaps they're an inspiration. If then, why not me? So I love that. Well, Joe, anything else you want to leave it? I kind of got you to leave it with us, but anything else you want to leave us with before we go? This is awesome.
No, just thank you so much, Jere. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. But one of the most inspiring, if not the most inspiring, managing broker of real estate agents ever has now become the most inspiring real estate agent, just kicking it off. Tell Bruno we want him to come on and tell us about technology and how he keeps you going. I love it. Yes. And tell him hi. And thank you. You're awesome. Thanks for being on.
Thank you so much, Jere. Really appreciate it.